500% tariffs on India. So, Mr. Donald Trump, the world's best president and the self proclaimed winner of Nobel Peace Prize, has done it again. Proposed by the US Senator Lindsey Graham, the US president has backed this bill on January 7th, 2026, which can impose up to 500% tariffs on the countries which are buying Russian oil and uranium with the motive to stop the funding of the Ukraine war. Now, effectively, this bill seems targeted towards the countries which are the highest purchasers of Russian fossil fuel. But this is not seeming like the entire story. After Trump has successfully began to sell Venezuelan captured oil, Trump now wants that the US should be the sole dominant seller of Brent crude in the world. The result of which is on your screen. Typical bloodbath in the stock market today on January 8th, 2026, where export oriented stocks, especially textile, were down by more than 5 to 7%. But India might just have a Rocky Balboa style uppercut left in its sleeve. In 2020, India had restricted Chinese firms to bid for government projects, infrastructure projects in India, which could have been worth over $700 billion. Now, this restriction was imposed after the border clashes at Galwan, and the uppercut which I was talking about could be the lift of this restriction from the Chinese firms. Now, the Ministry of Finance is planning to scrap the curbs which were imposed on the Chinese firms to bid for government projects, and this is followed after the repeated requests of other government departments that are facing shortages and project delays after the restrictions imposed on China in 2020. The important thing to focus here is that these developments do not just happen overnight. They take months and months of discussions and negotiations, but the timing to release this potential news is just impeccable. As we all have seen that after the first initial tariffs which were imposed by US on India and China and Russia, three giants were seeming to have built up a strong friendship amongst themselves. Now, while this can be a very short-term hit for our infrastructure companies, which we had seen in the stock market today, as the infrastructure firms such as BHEL, Larsen and Toubro, all these vigorously fell and weakened towards the close. But if you look at this with a longer horizon and with a longer perspective, to tackle the West, these three countries have joined hands together. Now, since we've spoken about the things which are out of our control, let's talk about the things which are in our control. As investors, what should you do? In very simple words, for the ones who are in this game for the long haul, the ability to ignore the noise, following the path, staying disciplined, and survival are the only things that matter. Track earnings, keep the discipline on point, and buy when there's fear on the streets.